Hello and welcome to my first video about Racket Social. Let me start with a quick introduction. My name is Hans. I have started developing Racket Social late in 2025, and I play badminton and a tiny bit of pickleball as a hobby. And our club had lots of social sessions where we had 5 to 8 people more in the session than could play in any one round. And people arrived late, people left early, and any change like this just caused any application that the organizers were using or paper-based pegboards to fail. They just didn't work properly. It would result in people sitting out multiple times. It would result in people also being the sitting out distribution very unfair. And based on my background, I thought that should actually be a really easy problem to solve. And I set out one, I think it was a Friday night, to just trial it and see what I could do. And Racket Social is the product from this initial weekend of figuring this out. So what is Racket Social? It's a software that allows you to manage players in a social racket setting. It allows you to organize them across the courts. And this is the big thing for me. It makes sure that the matches are really well balanced, that people of similar skill level can play against each other, and most importantly, that you ideally never sit out 2 times in a row, if it can be avoided. Last but not least, it also gives you a bit of stats about your games and about your sessions. Now, when you first come to the site, you find Racket Social under app. That's app.racketsocial.app. So if you could just go to app.racketsocial.app, you should be seeing this screen, and it's your initial starting point. When you do, sign up with Google, and you will essentially come to a screen which allows you to usually start a new session. I use the menu here, which is the 3 dots at the top. I click new session, and that takes me to a new session, and I quickly need to configure the session that we've got that fairly configured. So first of all, I need to give the session, or I can give the session a name. It defaults to the date and time, which probably is the easiest for you anyway. And then I can decide if our sessions are doubles or singles games, how many courts I've got, and I can decide who's playing. Now, if I want to name all my players, for brevity, I won't be doing this for all of them, but I can literally go in here and add some names. So let's add Owen here. And it's just a long click on any of the players. And let's add one more, and then just edit it and save it. And I can also decide if I want my matchmaking or my pairings to be skill balanced or not. We'll come to skills in a little while. I will leave this off here. We'll just randomly match people, and we can decide what we want to show. I'll leave this in the session statistics, because for the fair sit out policy, that's the one thing that you want to. You can also share sessions with others, so you get a sharing link, but I'll cover this for another video. Let's just get back and get to play, basically. Once you've done these settings, go to back to games and generate a round. It's as simple as that, and what that gives you is 2 courts in this case, because we had 2, and the number of players, or the groups of players playing together. So in this case, we have Anna and player 5 playing player 8 and Owen, Diana and Freddie playing Hans and player 6. And we've got 4 players sitting out. They have to wait for the next round, and we simply start our game. When you start the game, you cannot edit these anymore. They are fixed, and your timer essentially starts running. And you can then see how you end sessions, if you let every game play to 21, or if you set a time limit. That's entirely up to you. When you're done, you can decide if you want to go straight into the next game, or if you want to log scores. So the benefit of logging scores is that it is used in the background to give players a skill level, and based on the skill level, you can pair them so that they're more evenly paired in future sessions. I'm going to opt for locked scores. It's quite straightforward as well. Just ask the players how they played, save it, and your first round is played. You can now see who's won based on the quick string here. And then you can always look back at these rounds and see who's played. Let's go into the next round. So if we generate the next round, you now see slightly different numbers here. You see, first of all, you see that the 4 players who are sitting out in this round, they all so far have a 100% play rate. So the players scheduled to sit out are exclusively players who haven't played the last round. This is really to make it fair, and you can see that the 4 players who were not playing in the last round, they're all scheduled to play. We start the game, so we've fixed all the players, you can't edit them anymore, and we log our scores. Now we save this again and we generate the next round. Now let's assume for a minute that Chris came to us after the 2 games and said he's actually got an emergency, he needs to sort something, he has to leave. You can now click on Chris and click on away, and that means Chris won't be scheduled for any more games anymore, and automatically another player is scheduled into the session to take Chris' place. Now you can see here that isn't actually quite fair, that we've got, no, this is fair. So we've had a 50% player who has set out 1 round being scheduled in there to replace Chris. So all of that should work, and we just start our games again. Once the time has elapsed, we'll score the games, save them, and that's it. Now, in our next round, let us just say for a minute that Freddie and our player 6, they don't play very well together, just don't enjoy it, and they've asked us ages ago, we just know they would prefer not to play with each other. So what we can do in this case is we can take player 6, select them, and you can now move them to everything that is green. So in this case, we just swap them out for player 9, and you see the manual change we made here is automatically applied, and we start our game. Again, now you can't edit anymore because these are logged in, and we log our scores, we save, and we're done. If we now generate the next round, you might remember Chris had to leave for an emergency, and you can see that Chris now is not scheduled to play again. You also see that even though we've had 4 rounds played, Chris is only showing as sitting out 50% of the game. So I think he was sitting out 1 out of the first 2 games and then was missing. So whilst the player is away, they are not being considered as part of the sitting out statistics. If they join back later, they sit out as a fair percentage of the games that they have joined. We have a new player joining now. We had a player who was signed up for our class, but they couldn't make it at the beginning. So what we can do in the session here is we can now go back to the edit session, add a player. So that's our player 13. Let's just call them late arrival. We add them, and we just go back to the games and generate a new session. And now you can see here our late arrival is actually not scheduled to play the first game. Maybe we want to be nice to them and say, hey, just jump in. We pick one of the players who had a fairly high play rate so far, and we switch them with them, start the games, and log the scores, save it, and we're done. And we can do another round. And again, you can keep doing more rounds, obviously, as long as you like. Once you're done, so we start one more game here, log our scores again. And now that we're done, we save the last game and we mark end session. It asks us to confirm this. And once you've confirmed that you end your sessions, what you get is a quick leaderboard. And what the leaderboard actually means is, first of all, you see the win percentage of the games that the player has won. You can also order players by their session score. The session score is assuming that every player at the beginning of the session starts with a score of 1,000. And depending on who you play, that score is adjusted over time. If you play really, really strong players that are much better than you, if you win, you gain far bigger amount of points than you would lose if you lose against much stronger players, and vice versa. And if you want to look at how this works, the easiest example is the ELO score that's used for chess rankings. And we use this twice. So we use it per session. So here you see how people perform just based on the individual session. But if you're running a club and you want to see and show players how they've performed over time, you can also see their overall score over many, many sessions in the past. And last but not least, you can see within each of the sessions how the score has adjusted in this last session. So in this case, for instance, player 6, within the session, they managed to get to a score of 1292. Overall, they got to a score of 1287, but before the session started, this total score was clearly only in the 900s, and they've gained 314 points. And another player has even gained more with 315 points, but starting from a very poor perspective. And that's really the beauty of this, that you can show people how they performed. If they're interested, they can compare each other. If you've got competitions going on within your club, if people want to know, you can just let them know how they did, and hopefully it sort of builds a bit of a competitive edge between some of your players. That's really everything there is to Racket Social. I would really, really love to hear from you if you like it, if you would like to use it. Any feedback would be hugely appreciated. If you want to contact me to give feedback, the best way to get a hold of me is if you go to the About section. Right at the top here, you'll find a link to our WhatsApp community. Click that, join us on WhatsApp. We've got a community of a few active users, and I'd really appreciate to see more people there. If you've got ideas, feedbacks, if you found a bug, let me know, and I would be very, very happy to look at those things. I'm actively developing this tool, so I want to add a lot more features, but it really depends on the feedback I get from the users. So I look forward to hearing from you, and thank you very much for your time just now. Goodbye.